Hi people, it's Sarkivist here and welcome to the Warlords of Draenor beta. Please keep in mind that this is a beta and therefore everything you see here is subject to change. After spending some more time in the perilous FrostFire Ridge, I've encountered many dangerous enemies, including brutish ogres and fierce elementals. But before we return to FrostFire Ridge, let's take a quick look at the new character models. They're not all done yet sadly, but we do have a few, so there's the Tauren as you can see here. It's a general up-res for this character model. We've still got the same iconic features. You could not argue that this is an improvement. It's not like they've changed it, it's not like the Tauren is unrecognisable, it's just a general improvement, but they've left the familiar features there. The same goes for pretty much all the races, so if you're ever worried about losing the look of one of your old race characters, I would put that to rest, because it looks like all they've done is taken the same features, those same presets, and up-res them and added more detail. You've also got the undead. There's been some improvements definitely made to the spinal area, so you can also say as well as the face, they've also made some detail improvements to just the body in general, especially if you look at the gnome's fingers here. The fingers are far more organic looking. Before I would say that human models, dwarf models, those sorts of models all had a tendency, in fact, all the models really had a tendency to have fingers that looked like pieces of chalk, but now they look like actual fingers that could grasp things. With regards to iconic character models, I did find Draca, and she does look as if she might be done. A good amount of detail, but admittedly not quite as much as on Draca, but that's understandable because although she's an important character, she's not quite up there with the Warlords themselves, so there's got to be a bit of a difference there. They can't put enormous amounts of detail into every single model, especially when you consider they're still making the game. You never know, she might look better in the future. One thing I did mention in the last video that I would like to amend a bit is that I said that the expansion was probably going to be one giant roller coaster all the way through because the beginning of FrostFire was so engaging and fun. And although that really fast-paced element to it lasted longer than I would expect it to, it did eventually begin to slow down as a bit of me expected inside but didn't want to happen. So once you've taken the Bladespire Tower with Draca and Thrall, and you've established yourself in this centerpiece, which is a really marvelous looking structure by the way. I took a long shot of it as well just to show you how awesome it looks. But once you've got this, essentially it returns to normal. You go back to there being quest hubs and you go around doing all the quests surrounding them. To be honest, actually, I would say that the questing reminded me more of the Burning Crusade style than it does of Mists of Pandaria. First of all, what I mean by that, there are not as many quest hubs as there are in Mists of Pandaria, but when you do the quests, they can really send you out quite a great distance, especially the ones that are given to you in Bladespire. Although having said that, as well as these hubs like Bladespire, the major hubs where they send you out quite a great distance, there are also the smaller hubs where they do keep you in a relatively close area, so you don't have to travel too far and you don't spend too much time wasting just travelling across the big open tundras. And that brings me on to my next point. FrostFire Ridge has some massive open areas, and funnily enough, despite the climate being so drastically different, it really did remind me of Oldham, because if you think back to Oldham, there were some really big open landscapes that didn't have a lot in them, but they really created this sense of vastness. So they don't need to be there, but the fact they are there makes you feel like you're really in a big open world, not just a linear experience. Although the game's never really been linear, making such a grand scale of things is very impressive. And also this big landscape is littered with some iconic structures and items, so as I've said before, Bladespire looks really awesome. You've also got some giant skeletons of what I believe are known as colossi. One of them in fact has actually been repurposed as a base for some bad orcs, and you can go inside and fight them as if it was a cave. It's really quite impressive, the scale of these things. I'm not going to lie, I wish they were actually monsters, and we know that Blizzard aren't afraid to make gigantic monsters. Just think back to Northrend with that gigantic monster in Zul'Drak. He was huge, and I'm wondering if we're going to see anything like that as well. It would be awesome if there was a Grun like that. Returning though to the monsters you do fight, it was interesting to see Cleft Hooves making a return. They were also in the Burning Crusade. They haven't been lazy, they have been updated. These are like woolly Cleft Hooves. I haven't been to the Grand yet, but I'm guessing there'll be some Cleft Hooves there, as that's where they originally were. Also, you've got a Worgen, which looked a bit out of place to me. It was like a wolf's den, and I'm not sure if why a Worgen was here, but hey, it added to the variety a bit. You also had some elementals. You also, this was quite cool, there are these things called bonus objectives scattered around the map, where you don't actually have to pick up a quest, they're just there. And if I was to liken this to anything, it would be the questing system in Guild Wars 2. They've almost shamelessly ripped it off, in fact. So rather than having to pick up a quest, you just go to an area, do the objective and get the reward. Something you might have noticed about my action bars is that they are a little sparse. There aren't as many spells as you may be used to on the live servers, and it does seem that Blizzard want to focus us more on the spells and abilities that actually matter. So I asked in general if it was just a beta thing that there weren't many spells, but apparently they really are trying to cut down, trim the fat if you will, and Blizzard do this a lot. I mean, if you look at the number of spells they've removed from the game since vanilla, they have removed quite a lot, and admittedly some of them are basically useless or just overpowered or underpowered. I do have faith in them. They've certainly not removed anything that's too important. I would have hated them if they removed the elementals. One thing that does bug me a little bit about FrostFire Ridge is that I really don't like fighting ogres, and there are a lot of ogres in this zone, and you do have to spend quite a lot of time fighting them. I like Gron, I like the cleft hooves, even like those pale look things that jump on your back and you have to fight off, but it's just something about ogres that I don't like. They've been updated a little bit, but they've been in the game for so long, I'm just getting a bit tired of them. It's a bit like if we had to fight gnolls or kobolds or even Naga. It's not that they're badly designed, it's just that I'm bored with them by this point. There's not really too much else to say about FrostFire Ridge. I guess I did encounter a few more rares. They do seem quite common for, well, as I say, rares. Essentially, not too hard that you need more than one person, but not so easy that they're like a regular mob. They're just manageable, like the first one I met with. So I guess that wraps it up for this video. As always, people, thanks very much for watching, and see you next time. Subscribe to the Archivist 42 channel for gaming top 5s, reviews, and more.